Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's Business Success Series presented by Manulife on how students can help, a discussion with small businesses. My name is Allison Mitchell, and I'm the Program Manager of the Access Student Talent Program at the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we live and work on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people, as we seek a renewed relationship based on the foundation of mutual understanding and respect. As participants in today's virtual event, we are coming together as one. We believe everyone is free to be their true self and receive the same respect and opportunity regardless of age, ethnicity, gender, culture, identity, sexual orientation, beliefs, or language. We hope you will join us in fostering a positive environment here today that is safe and welcoming space for all. We know that there is more that we can do, and we are committed to listening, learning, and growing as we go. Today's session would not be possible without the continued support of our sponsors. Our title sponsor for the Business Success Series is Manulife. Our platinum sponsor for the series is the Immigration Partnership, and September sponsor is Gowling WLG. These organizations are committed to supporting our local economy and providing businesses with the resources and tools they need to thrive. Just before this session starts, I'd like to go over a few quick reminders. Please ensure that your microphone is muted throughout the presentation to reduce background noise. If you have a tech-related question, please comment in the chat section, and a representative from our team will get back to you shortly. If you have a question for today's speakers, they will be gathered throughout the discussion, and our speakers will answer them at the end of our discussion. You can just put your questions in the Q&A section. All attendees will be receiving a recording of today's webinar, and it will also be available on the Greater KW Chamber site. I would now like to invite Aubrey Lasky, partner with Gowling WLG, to introduce today's speakers.
That's great. Thank you, Allison. Gowling WLG is proud to be this month's presenting sponsor of the Business Success Series. I myself am a corporate partner at Gowling WLG and sit on the student committee, so this topic is very much of interest to me. I have the privilege of introducing today's guests, Benita Eby and Fazia Khan. Benita Eby is a burnout prevention strategist, executive coach, and owner of Breakthrough Personal and Professional Development, Inc., specializing in burnout prevention and wellness for organizations and individuals. Benita brings a professional healthcare background to the table, combined with 20 years of experience developing leaders, training teams, and coaching people to become the best they can be. Passionate to see people thrive, Benita is on a mission to end burnout. Of course, this is very meaningful in this day of COVID, and to me as well. Fazia Khan is an entrepreneur, a tireless community volunteer with an unprecedented drive to build capacity and advance equality for women through her role as the CEO of Women That Give. She is driven by the purpose of giving back, is actively committed to the development of resilient communities, supporting charitable causes to uplift and assist the needy and underprivileged citizens. Please join me in welcoming Benita and Fazia. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. I will now pass it back to Allison.
Thanks so much, Aubrey. I'm really looking forward to hearing from today's panelists. Our panelists today were connected to post-secondary students locally from our local institutions through the Chamber's Access Student Talent Program. Our Access Student Talent Program, the aim of the program is to help small businesses and not-for-profit organizations more easily connect with post-secondary students from Conestoga College, Wilfrid Laurier University, and the University of Waterloo. There's lots of different ways that businesses and organizations can work with students through field placements, through co-op work terms, capstone projects, in-class projects. That's just to name a few. There are many, many different ways that businesses and students can connect. And students can be a great source of innovative and creative ideas, as well as a great temporary resource for any organization that is looking to get some projects done or some work done. For businesses who are interested in learning more about working with students, they're welcome to reach out to my team at the Chamber We can set up a call and talk about what your business needs are. We then take that information and we do some research on what options you might have for working with students from our local post-secondary schools. And if there's an option that is of interest to you to explore further, then we'll connect you directly with the appropriate post-secondary school representative. When businesses and students work together, there are so many benefits for both the business and the students. Our program is here to support small businesses and not-for-profit organizations and to help them connect with the students that could support their businesses. We are a free service and we are available to chamber members and non-chamber members. So if you're interested in learning more about working with students, please feel free to reach out. Today, our panelists are going to share their experiences with working with students. I've also had the opportunity to hire some students through the Access Student Talent Program to work with me. So I'll also be sharing some of my experiences as well. We had originally had a third panelist going to join us today, Corinne Blesky from H2R Business Solutions. Unfortunately, something came up and she's not able to join us today, but she had a wonderful experience with the students that she worked with, and she has sent me along some information to share with you throughout the webinar today. So we will get started with Benita and Fazia, and maybe I'll start with Benita. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. So again, my name is Benita Eby, and I'm the owner of Breakthrough Personal and Professional Development, Inc., working with organizations and individuals to overcome and prevent burnout and create wellness. The whole idea is to help organizations and people thrive. And I am on a mission to end burnout.
That's great. Thank you so much. Fazia, can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Thank you, Allison. And thank you so much to Greater Kitchener Chamber of Commerce for having me here on this panel on behalf of Women That Give. So basically, Women That Give is a registered charity that provides free programs and support services to women survivors, women in need, disadvantaged children, and marginalized members in our communities. So we are a women-run charity that supports women and the marginalized community. So I'm here to share my experience about how we worked with the students and how much we are thankful to the chamber and the partners that we built this year. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you to both of you for sharing that. Maybe you can start, we'll get into maybe getting an overview of the type of work that the students helped you with. So Fazia, you worked with some students from the University of Waterloo. Can you share with us how those students supported your business and what they did for you?
Yes, so we onboarded, of course, the students through the EDGE program from University of Waterloo. And the students provided support to our business development side. Helping us cultivate donors, partners, and sponsors. Also helped our marketing and communication side, and build our awareness through social media posts. So basically, their roles were completely online, and we had the opportunity to work with diverse students coast to coast. So we were so lucky, with this program. So yeah, that's about it. So those are the areas primarily focused on how the students helped our business, our organization. Yes.
That's great. Thank you. And how long did you work with the students for? Was it a semester?
Oh, yes. So
okay.
We were fortunate to have one student who really liked our organization, I believe. And so we had her up until 3 semesters, actually. And there were other 3 who just completed 1 semester for us.
Okay, that's great. And Benita, can you tell us a little bit about the work that the students from Conestoga College did for your organization?
Mm-hmm. I've had an incredible student from Conestoga College from the PR department. She was absolutely amazing. She worked with me on PR, so a lot of copywriting, lots of work around social media as well. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'll share a little bit later is how I found her incredible gifting and just worked within that. And from the very beginning of our time together to the very end, she had developed phenomenally. And the social media that she provided for me, the posts that she created, all of the creative design work was absolutely fabulous.
That's great. Thank you. And to you both, had you worked with students before in your organizations?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So I have some information that Corinne from H2R sent to me that she wanted me to share. So Corinne and the team at H2R worked with students from Wilfrid Laurier University, and they worked with 2 groups of students within a class, and those students were tasked with coming up with a social media plan for the industry partners that they were working with. So they created a social media content and schedules for posting. They provided H2R with the branding strategies across all of the social media platforms. They pinpointed their target markets and which platforms they could best reach those audiences. And the students were able to introduce H2R to programs that they hadn't used before, like Hootsuite, and it made marketing a lot easier for them. From my experience, I've had the great fortune of hiring 6 co-op students over the past couple of years and representing all 3 of the schools that we work with. I've had them working in marketing as well as business development. And what I found is the eagerness that they brought in, the willingness to learn was something that I really appreciated, but they also brought in some really great creative and innovative ideas. They introduced me to some database platforms that I hadn't used before, I'd heard of, but I'd never used before. I, previous to this program, had not hosted a webinar before, so one co-op student had hosted a webinar before, and she was able to kind of work all the back end part of the webinar that I wasn't familiar with, and she was familiar with that technology. So the experience that I had has been wonderful. They've brought in some expertise that I didn't have, and I really hold the co-op students as one of the keys in how the program, the Access Student Talent Program, has been a success so far. So I guess we'll start. You both said that you've worked with students in the past, but I'm curious why you wanted to work with co-op students in the first place. And maybe we'll start with Benita.
Sure. Well, as an entrepreneur, I need to clone myself at least 3 times. So maybe some of you can understand that and relate. So the idea of being able to have some students who are passionate about what they bring to the table, truly want to learn, is a huge benefit to my company. I've had the opportunity to work with students from Laurier and some private schools. Conestoga College has been my greatest asset. Also the University of Waterloo as well in the past. And my experience has been absolutely incredible. Honestly, I'd recommend it to anybody.
Great, thank you. And Fazia, why did you want to work with post-secondary students?
Yes, so we also have worked in the past with post-secondary students, and we had the post-secondary students work with us through Canada Summer Job Program in the past. So, and interestingly, that this year, because of COVID and the pandemic, so I guess Canada Summer Job Program was not available to everyone. So we were also one of them. However, we learned about this amazing opportunity through Student Access Talent Program, where we, from your chamber. And then we thought we should tap into this opportunity and reach out to the, education partners. And yes, we have had a tremendous, amazing experience this year, bringing these great students from coast to coast, as I said earlier. And yeah, we enjoyed it. And like Bonita said, yes, students are not only just, creative, innovative, but they can really help grow the awareness and outreach of the organization, such as ourselves. We are a charity, and we really need to put a word out there for us. And we are all volunteers, so we really need the support. And we are so thankful for this amazing partnership that we've had with the Waterloo University this year.
That's great. Thank you so much. What Corinne sent me was something that we've heard from lots of businesses, and something that Benita spoke to in terms of time constraints. And they also, Corinne told me that they just didn't have the expertise in-house to effectively market the business. And so they really wanted to work with the students because they felt like the students could bring a fresh perspective in order to get the name out into the community, They were able to get diverse spread of ideas, which was important to them. And the students are connected to the community, and they wanted to take advantage of the connections that the students had so that they could get a better understanding of what people wanted to see in terms of the services that H2R can offer. So that is, there's lots of different reasons why small businesses and not-for-profits want to engage with students. Obviously, time constraints and often there's not as many resources or there's not the expertise in-house. And so students can be a really great option in terms of temporary resources and bringing in some of that expertise that you might not have in-house. So thank you for sharing that.
Allison, may I just add to that?
Of course.
There's another piece that I've really appreciated, and that is we are so incredibly gifted here in KW region that we have so many people from around the world in our schools. And so for me, I found it absolutely so helpful to have, for me, it's been women I've worked with so far, and there's been a great diversity that has allowed me to have more of a global worldview, which I really appreciate. That's something I push myself on constantly, and really, really appreciate the different aspects that women have been able to bring to me.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the specifics on how your organizations benefited from working with the students. So Fazia, can you tell us a little bit about how Women That Give has benefited?
Yes, so we benefited a great deal. I mean, like I said, with pandemic, the kind of work we do, we've seen a surge in demand for the services. And of course, it can be overwhelming, and the more hands, make it easier for us. So these amazing students, they helped us grow our outreach. They helped us build new partnerships, especially for the program that we launched this year. It's called CRS program, which is like a COVID relief support program. So they really they got us such amazing kind donor stakeholders that we were able to provide for the women that we serve. So building new partnerships, growing our outreach, and giving us a great experience as a complete team, and helping our business as a charity was something that we are very proud of. And
that's great. That's
these are
great.
simple benefits, but they mean magnitude to us.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that one of the students that you work with has stayed on past the one semester, which is great.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and we really look forward to continuing this partnership with these amazing educational partners, and especially University of Waterloo. I mean, they've been really helpful for us in every way.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Great. Benita, can you tell us a little bit about how your organization has benefited?
Absolutely. The time factor is huge. Beyond that, I come from a leadership development background in the last 20 years. And one of the things that we always say in leadership development is whenever you have the opportunity, spend 80% of your time on things that only you can do and that you do phenomenally well. Let others do other things. And you and I know as entrepreneurs that we spend so much time doing everything, wearing so many hats. So I want to spend my time doing culture transformations and creating the workshops, doing the executive coaching. So to have someone come on and be able to do my social media, be able to help me with my branding, to bring all the kinds of things to my business that I struggle with a little bit more so I can excel where I do and let the student excel where he or she does.
That's great. Yeah, and when I worked with the students in the Access Student Talent Program, not only did it provide me with the temporary resources that I needed, so it wasn't just me anymore. I was able to grow the program quicker. I was able to reach more businesses. Marketing is not my area of expertise, so I relied really heavily on the student that I had working the marketing role to kind of do all of the marketing related activities. But because of the nature of our program, and our program is connecting businesses with students, it was really important for me to get a student perspective and to work with students who are experiencing work integrated learning, because that's kind of that's what our program is based on. And so I have heard from other small businesses and other organizations that, you know, bringing students in addition to the creative ideas and the expertise, you know, getting a student perspective, if that might be one of your target areas, or broadening the perspective and the ideas within your business, is also a really great benefit. Corinne let us know that so the way that it worked when they worked with the students is, at the end, the students presented their social media report, the plan, back to the business. And so they got very high quality presentations and reports, and they got 2 from the 2 groups that they worked with. The presentations were filled with content and ideas and strategies that they could easily deploy themselves. And the students provided all the electronic files to the business so that they could start implementing it, which was really helpful to them. And I have to say that I was invited to participate or sit in on that particular presentation. And I was really blown away with the quality of the social media plan that the students brought up, that they created, the in-depth research that they did in order to ensure that the social media plan was the right fit for H2R. And I know that immediately once H2R saw the presentation, they said that there were things in there that they could implement right away. And it sounds like Corinne has said that they've been able to continue that. And so, you know, if they hadn't worked with the student, you know, they might still be struggling a little bit in the area of marketing, or they may have had to go to another marketing resource. And so to them, it was a really big benefit to work with those marketing students. We're often asked in the program by small businesses and solopreneurs whether they're eligible to work with a student because they're so small. And so I'm wondering if you can share the size of your organization and whether the size was a factor in you making the decision to participate in your whole experience. And maybe we'll start with Benita.
Sure. It is moi. I am. I'm the one who runs the organization. I certainly hire out for different areas that I need help on, but I do not currently have employees. That is certainly within the strategy for future. And that was one of my big questions. Do I even have the opportunity to work with students? And yes, the Student Access Center, we could do that. And I'm not sure if I said that name correctly, so please correct me.
That's okay. Access Student Talent. That's fine.
Thank you, Student Talent. They were it was so helpful to be able to do that. And even thinking about co-op students, I love the idea of having co-op students. I've certainly worked with them when I worked in a nonprofit and those kinds of organizations as well. But being in the position through COVID, and me, like many other entrepreneurs, did not actually qualify for any COVID money. So when you're dealing with a smaller budget, to be able to get some student talent without the co-op aspect was just such an incredible gift.
That's great. Thank you. And Fazia, can you tell us a little bit about the size of your organization?
Yes, so like I had mentioned earlier, so we are all volunteers. So we are about 14 people, 14 women, and we work very hard. We dedicate our own resources, own times, you know, to serve our communities. So when you say about eligibility, yes, there are some programs that, of course, small businesses cannot qualify. However, in our case, to work with University of Waterloo and through your program, it's a student access program, student talent
access student talent.
Yes, access student talent. Yes, it was such a great opportunity for us that we got what we were looking for. We got the best talent we were looking for, and so that solved that helped us build our case forward to continue doing what we do and we are good at, serving people.
That's great. That's great. And again, my experience, the chamber is larger than both of your organization. We're about 17, but when I started at the chamber, my role was to launch the Access Student Talent Program. So I was like a little team within the chamber team. And so it was just me working on the Access Student Talent Program. So working with the students exponentially increased my capability of the amount of work that I could do. And so it was hugely beneficial. Corinne let me know that H2R has 9 employees, or had 9 employees at that time. And some of the other businesses that were working with the students from the class that she was working with only had 1 or 2 employees. So obviously there's going to be maybe some requirements depending on the type of work integrated learning. But for the audience, you can see that really size might not be an obstacle for you. Organizations with just one person or a couple people are perfectly fine to engage in work integrated learning. So don't let that be a reason why you don't reach out and do a little bit of research or exploration about working with students. Let's talk a little bit about expectations, because that is something that we often get questions from businesses. So the expectations of the employer or host organizations that participate will vary depending on the different type of work integrated learning opportunity. I'm wondering if you can talk about what was required of you and your organization when you were working with the students. And so Fazia, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Allison. So yes, what was expected of us as employer was, like, after the introductions were made from the chamber to University of Waterloo, we had a meeting with the liaison officer who took us in depth of what the program looked like and how we can bring the students on board. So we were expected to provide 36 hours per semester per student. That was one requirement. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the positions that we were asking them to post for the students who could come on board were to be vetted and approved. That was also one thing. Thirdly, as an employer, it was expected of us to provide an evaluation for students to receive their credits or their certificate. That's an EDGE certificate, academic certificate. These were 3 things that we were supposed to follow through as an employer. And I would say that it was very smooth. The entire process was very simple. It was very easy to follow and easy to understand. And they shared our job postings, and we got on board amazing students for us.
That's great. And so while the students were working with you, did you meet with them regularly? Was that in person or virtually? Like, what was the time commitment from your standpoint in working with the students from a supervision standpoint?
Yes, so we spanned out those 36 hours into 4 hours a week. So we had for one semester, right? So every week we had a meeting with the students to understand what they've learned and what their progress looks like, and what they are giving back to us in terms of their time and effort. Mm-hmm. So it was very well laid out. I mean, we have trainings, we provided training, we had orientation for them to understand like what our expectations are. So there was training provided, like I said, and each week we had a meeting with them. So to understand how we are moving together forward. So yes, that was another thing. Did I miss anything? Or should I add something else?
No, I think you've covered it. Thank you. Okay, what about you, Benita?
Yeah, very similar. I'm going to focus this answer on Conestoga College, because that's where my greatest amount of effort has gone. They were wonderful. I met with the liaison. I've worked with a couple of different liaisons. Both were absolutely wonderful. They shared what I could expect from students. They helped me to understand what the students have been learning, where they were in their coursework, whether they were in their first semester or whether they were, the last student I had actually was just finishing up. This was the last requirement of her entire program. So I knew that I was getting someone at the very finish line of her education. So that makes a difference with what you might ask of somebody. Then the people at Conestoga College, they were kind enough to actually fill out the forms. It was amazing, because you and I know how difficult it is to spend a lot of times time filling out forms. So they did that. They essentially filled in what I had told them, asked me to take a look at it, see if there's any tweaks I wanted to make, and then sent it off to me to sign it digitally. Super easy. Then my process was I interviewed the different students who came forward. Actually, let me back up. Conestoga College was kind enough to have people email me directly if they were interested in one of the postings. Then I vetted those. I took a look at those, the cover letters and the resumes that came in. You can decide what you want to receive from the students. I wanted the resume, I wanted the cover letter, and a couple of other things. So I would read those, decide which students I wanted to interview. I did an interview process. I did interviewing the same as I would for my business if I was hiring someone. So I checked out the references and that kind of thing. That's your choice, but I think that it's good practice. Then it was really easy to work with Conestoga College. Honestly, all they wanted to know was, are things working? Did you take someone on? Are you having any problems that we can help you solve? And then at the very end, they sent a fill in the blank evaluation. Super easy, easy peasy, just sent it back. It probably took me 15 minutes. With the student herself, I'll just speak about the last one. What we decided to do was every Monday, we set aside 2 hours. She knew that that's meeting time. We didn't always take that long by any means, but she knew, put it into your calendar, and that is blocked off for us. Then because she was doing creative work, and this last particular placement was a very quick placement. It was 5 weeks, but it was 40 hours per week, which was wonderful. I've also worked with that full semester type thing, 80 hours over a semester, that kind of thing. But this one, because it was so short and so intense, I decided that I would meet with her for about 10 minutes each morning. And what she did was she actually sent me the creative work that she was working on. So we could actually evaluate it together and say, okay, this is what's working. This isn't what's working. Why is that? How can we tweak it? And the great thing is then within a week, she was producing extremely highly valuable pieces for me. It was wonderful.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Alison, can I add something to what
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, so when I was saying it was spanned out 4 hours, that is actually for the current student that we have. We have it from Humber. So
okay.
So we have those 4 hours are for her. So actually it was 2.5 hours per week. So that gives them the students the flexibility of work-life and balance as well, because some of them were also doing work. So yes, that was additional. So it was 2.5 hours. And as Bonita was mentioning, that go through the resumes, we also had a lot of students who applied to us, and it was amazing. This year was amazing, in terms of this partnership.
Yeah, great. And Corinne from H2R worked with students in a little different way. So she worked with a couple of groups of students as part of a class. And so from the expectations from that standpoint, they had to meet with the students by Zoom at the beginning of the class to talk a little bit about their challenge and talk about their business. They sent over their marketing materials that they had for evaluation. They needed to be available from time to time to answer emails, but this project, because it was an in-class project, it spanned most of the semester, and then they needed to be available at the end to be present for the presentation, and then to provide some feedback and ask questions and things like that. So, I mean, as the audience can see, there are varying time commitments depending on the way that you work in which with a student. With Fazia, she had a student for a few hours a week. Bonita had a student 40 hours a week for 5 weeks. Corinne, it was over the course of a semester where a group of students was working. When I worked with the co-op students that I had them full time for, I think it was 15 weeks. And so that's also a bit of a different expectation. So similarly, I posted and I interviewed, and then you have to onboard them, and then you're there and you're overseeing the day-to-day work. And I had regular one-on-one meetings with them, but then I would also have team meetings because I had more than one co-op student at a time. And it's important that they're learning from each other, especially when they're doing different work. but they're also sharing if they're doing this similar kind of work. And then of course at the end, it's the evaluation. And so because there's lots of different ways to work with students, when we talk about work integrated learning, specifically work integrated learning is when a student is applying what they've learned in the classroom into a workplace setting, even if it's remote, that's fine. And as part of that work integrated learning, evaluation is important. So the industry partner or the employer, the host organization doing some kind of evaluation. And so that's where you're seeing, evaluations from field placements, evaluation in Fozzie's case, working with the students, the presentation, and then the co-op evaluations are also part of it. So there's always kind of a component of evaluating the students in some way. It's also interesting, Benita, you brought up, we were talking about like the expectations of the employer. So what's the time commitment from the employer standpoint? But you also brought up what you can expect as an employer, what can you expect from the students? And so that's an interesting conversation to make sure that, when you are working with a post-secondary school, that you're setting really clear expectations and you're really understanding what to expect from the students. And students, like I said, and I have said, are a great source of creativity and innovation and expertise and all of those great things. They are still students and they are still learning, depending on what year you're working with a student and how much work experience they have. They can come in and do work for you and create a really great product. Every student's going to be a little bit different. So managing, supervising, overseeing, it may have to be adjusted kind of depending on the type of work integrated learning that you're doing and also the type of student. You just have to really work with that student to understand that. Is that fair? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And so we've talked about expectations. Benita, you talked a little bit about your process in connecting, like the process of working with the school and your experience with that. I'm wondering if you have anything to add about that process.
Sure, I do actually.
Okay.
So first of all, again, I'll focus on Conestoga College because that's where most of my time has been spent. And one of the things I really appreciate about them is that the liaisons themselves were in touch with me and said, how can we help? And they asked, how can we improve? How can we make this better for you as an entrepreneur? Which honestly blew my mind because their focus is on the students and yet they cared about us as business owners. So I found that absolutely remarkable.
That's great.
Would you like me to speak a little bit about my onboarding process or would you like to wait for that?
Let's wait for that because we've had kind of a question. So we'll hold that. Yeah. Fazia, how about you? What was the process like connecting with the students?
Seamless and very easy. And
great.
Seamless, very easy, and so full of support, I would think. Like how Bonita is saying, it was the same case with us too. I mean, the liaison officer was so incredibly nice to us that they were like following up with me and asking, okay, so are you guys, you've got the students you were looking for? When do you want the postings to be taken off? Do you still want to move, continue hiring? It was very nice. It was so easy. And I don't, maybe I can say it was such a good relationship that we've, built together that we look forward to working again.
That's great. Thank you. So I know that there are going to be business owners and small organizations on here that may be interested and very interested in hearing what you have to say. And so now that you've been through the experience, what advice would you give other small businesses and organizations that are thinking about working with a student? Benita?
Yeah, I think that this is a really important piece. I don't know what other entrepreneurs do when they're bringing people on or other businesses do, but I can tell you what I did. And part of this is because I'm a coach at heart and I love developing people. So first of all is interviewing well, checking references and those kinds of things. Then what I let my students know is that they will be receiving an onboarding package. And to know that their very first day on the job is actually only interacting with that onboarding package. And here's why. Well, first of all, let me tell you what's in the package and then why I did it that way. So within it, I put lots of information about my business, so my website, my social media, asked them to take a look at it, just see what they understood about my business through that. I put in Zoom links so they know when we're going to have meetings and to actually put that to their calendars. Gave lots of information about the company, what to expect, got them to sign up for some apps, some free apps that I wanted to utilize within our relationship. And I also put in a non-disclosure form. Now they knew I put it right onto the original application that they would have to do that. So that was no surprise to them. So that was what they did on the first day. And this is the reason why, because I wanted them to be able to come back to me and tell me about my business. And it gave me so much information about how someone who only had that information would view me and my business. It was very, very helpful. Then the other thing I did was, again, have them sign up for apps, but also I would recommend that if you as a business owner use a free version of an app, oftentimes apps will give a 1 month free trial of a more expensive one. And so some of my students, I've had them use the premium one for that 1 month. And that's given us a little bit more to work with. And then it's helped me make decisions on buying into those apps later on. Again, I made regular meetings. So we knew that every single week it was at that time, no questions asked. I made it really clear on expectations around time. Now, part of this is because I'm a burnout prevention strategist. I was really clear that, hey, I'm a morning person. You may get emails from me at 6:30 in the morning because that's when I love to work. Turn off your notifications. Do not respond. If you respond before 9 a.m., you are in trouble because you are not expected to do that. You want to start at 9? Start at 9. And so there was that trust building for one thing, making sure that they're taking their breaks, making sure, and that sounds really basic, but honestly, sometimes the students don't have the life skills to know that, oh, I need to take care of myself. Oh, I actually can stop at 5 p.m. when that's supposed to be my end time. And I think that we as business owners have the ability to build that into them. Another thing that I did was, again, this comes from my background with leadership development, but I actually did a strengths test with my students. It's a free one I use. I think it's called high5.com. It's the free version of Strengths Finders.
Okay.
And I had them do that on the first day too, let them know that this had nothing to do with whether they're going to do well with me or anything like that. I wanted to work within their strengths. So I had them send that to me, and then we talked about it. Like, what did you agree with from this? What did you not? And then how can we actually formulate what we're doing together to work within your strengths? Which means that I was willing to be a little bit fluid. Not every business can be fluid. But for me, I love being able to find that diamond in the rough and help them actually become the best that they can be. So that benefited my students, but it also benefited me because it meant that I got far better work than if I had them working within areas that weren't their strengths. And last thing I'll say is this. I asked my last two students, I asked them, what made our relationship so positive? And both of them mentioned trust. They said, you helped us to know that we could trust you. And so a big piece of that was when I would meet them, I would tell them, you are free to make mistakes. It is okay to make mistakes. I make mistakes. Know it's a safe place to do that. Just be honest about it and let's talk through it. I let them know that when I'm giving feedback, I will always give feedback. Some of it's going to be positive. Some of it's going to be negative. I expect the same thing from you. And I want you to know that this is all within a relationship of trust. And I found that in the last two students where I've used that kind of process, that we built trust really quickly. They tested me, which is good. I expect that. I mean, wouldn't you if you're building a relationship? And the great thing is they produced wonderful work, but here we are today, and I still have relationships with both of those students, and with both of them, I help them to get jobs as well. So it's just such a win-win for everybody.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. What about you, Fazia?
Yeah, so I really like what Bonita said. There's so many things that are kind of similar into this, what we were doing as well. However, I will go to that later on. But first, I'd like to mention is that if any small business is planning to hire a student, you should. I mean, with little training and direction, students can really make a difference to your business. Because they're very eager to learn and develop their skills and share what they, bring to, they share what they've learned in school. So it's like a win-win for everyone. And I know one thing that I also like to mention is when you are trying to find a student, start early to connect with your local chambers or, find partners so that I'll give you an example of ours. So in our case, we connected with Student Access.
Access Student Talent.
Yes, Access Student Talent program last November, so that we could get students join us this January. So that was something that if you're a business you're looking to hire, you may want to start early connecting with the right people who can actually bring partners for you and help your business grow. That's one thing. So we did that last year, and we are thankful to Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce for connecting us with the universities and local colleges and helping us grow and serve, continue doing the work that we do through this amazing partnerships. And now going back to what Bonita was saying, yes, so building the trust with students is so important. When we onboarded the students, we made sure that in the first 2 days, they are actually familiarizing themselves with what this organization is all about and what we do. And after their orientation was done, they were handed in a they were handed a onboarding package so that they could review our policies. They could go through, what is required of them and understand what their roles are and expectations of us as an employer are. And yes, we continued meeting with them regularly, understanding what they want. And I also ensured that I tell them that I'm always accessible. There's no time frame of weekend or weekday, though it's not supposed to. One has to take rest, but then doesn't matter with me. I told them all the time, any time of the day they feel they need to connect, they're most welcome to connect with me. And that's, I believe, an employer should be to the ones who are working with them. And yes, and start as early as possible to start building those connections.
That's great. Thanks, Fazia. And it's a great point about starting early, because if you've never worked with a student before, often you don't realize that the schools tend to recruit employers and industry partners about a semester ahead. So, if you want to work with somebody in January, then, it's best if you don't wait till December to reach out. Start having those conversations as soon as you can so that we can really give you a great idea of all of the different options that might be available and the timeframes that they might be available. So that's a really great point. Corinne's advice to small businesses when it comes to working with students, she says 2 words: do it. They had such a great experience.
Exactly.
They worked with amazing students from Laurier. She also says that she works with several clients that hire co-op students from our local post-secondary schools as well as schools outside of the region. And those businesses hire students every semester, but then they also hire them after graduation. And so that's also one of the benefits to working with students, which is starting to build that talent pipeline down the road so that hopefully when you are starting to grow your team, your recruitment costs, your training costs might be decreased a little bit because you already have worked with some people and you might be able to recruit them a little bit quicker and a little bit less expensively. She says that the experience is as beneficial and educational for the students as it is the organization. So it really is a win-win in that case. I'll remind our audience, if you have any questions, please put those into the Q&A section so that we can ask our panelists. We're getting close to the end, and this has been a really great discussion. Thank you so much. I do want to touch on the onboarding and the orientation. So you both have mentioned it in part of your answers, and you both mentioned, setting the expectations with the students, which is so important. And Benita, when you talked about, I work at this time, I don't expect you to work at that time, I have found that to be really important as well, because often students, they're not sure. They're not sure whether if they get an email, they need to respond right away. So it's really important to set those expectations. And what my hours are, I don't expect them to be your hours. They're my hours because they work for my life. So can you each speak a little bit more maybe about the onboarding or the orientation process that you've done, maybe some tips that might work for businesses who haven't worked with a student before? Benita, you can start if you'd like.
Sure, happy to. I think that I've explained a lot of what I put in the onboarding package. What I do let them know, the students know when I'm interviewing and when they have been accepted, is that this is how we'll actually begin, is to expect that onboarding package. What I expect of them with the onboarding package, to read it, to go through all of the things that are written in there, everything from signing up with the apps to looking at the social media and that kind of thing. And here's the thing, to me, it's not only an onboarding process for the student, it's a bit of a test for me. Because what I want to see when we meet then the next day, so normally with the first week, I'll meet with them the first day, and then the second day, the first day was an onboarding, the second we actually meet. Now, of course, it depends on how that looks for hours per week for each student. But what I like to do then is see if they actually did what I asked them to, because that's the starting point. For whether people are going to understand the way I station. Did they simply not get around to it, and we now have a time management thing to work with. So I like to try to weed those things out really, really early in the process.
That's great, thank you. Fawzia, is there anything you wanted to add about onboarding and orientation?
Yes, Allison. So basically, like I said, we've worked with post-secondary students in the past as well. So we have a set pattern, like we have a set format that we have 1 day orientation where the students will have the opportunity to see what we do through a live presentation because of COVID now. So it was an online orientation. And once that is complete, then we go through with their roles and responsibilities and what our expectations are of them. Then we also tell them that they will receive the company's email, they will receive their credentials. That's what they're going to use to move forward to connect for connecting or maybe communicating with the stakeholders or community members. And then, of course, they have to sign consent forms. They have to sign acknowledgement forms that they've gone through the policies. We work with in sensitive areas too, so we have to keep confidentiality of our clients. So it's a part of the package, or it's a part of the entire process that they have to sign and acknowledge that they've gone through all the policies. They understand what their role is all about. And yeah, basically, so like I have also spoken in detail earlier on. So this is something that we do with every student who comes and joins us, and or any other volunteer who comes and joins us.
That's great, thank you. We had a question come in versus that talks about or asks about paid versus unpaid. So I'm happy to take this one just for clarifying. So when businesses hire co-op students, those are paid positions, and there is funding available from the federal government, the Student Work Placement Program, and the federal government increased the amount of funds that are available through the pandemic, and that has now increased, and the increase is staying for a period of time. And so organizations can apply to get up to 75% of a student's wages covered, and that is up to a maximum of $7,500 per student per semester. So while the co-op work placements are paid, there is a significant subsidy that might be available from the federal government for businesses that are interested. And so I would encourage you to explore that, because it really makes a difference in your ability to possibly afford hiring a student, which would allow you to work with a student full-time for 4 months. And then some of the other opportunities that we've talked about today, so the field placements, some of the programs through EDGE, working with the class that Corinne worked with, those are all unpaid opportunities. So I just want people to really understand that there are opportunities that are paid, there are opportunities that are unpaid, there are opportunities that have varying levels of lengths of time. And so there's not just one way that you can work with a student. So I would really encourage people to reach out to understand whether or not there might be an option that is a great fit for their organization. We are pretty much coming to the end of our presentation. And so we have answered all of the questions. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise, Benita and Fazia. I've really appreciated and enjoyed speaking with you about your experiences. To everyone else, thank you for joining us today. I want to thank our sponsors. Our title sponsor of the series is Manulife. Our platinum sponsor of the series is the Immigration Partnership. Our September sponsor is Gowling WLG. And again, I want to thank our speakers today, which are Benita and Fazia. Finally, to everyone who's joined us today, thank you. We do run the Business Success Series every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Next week, we'll be joined by Paul Droliard and Kevin Ballantyne from Grant Thornton LLP. They'll be discussing how the COVID pandemic has caused many business owners to consider exiting their business and how to determine if now is the right time to transition out of your business. We hope to see you then. For full details and to register, please visit greaterkwchamber.com. I would encourage you to please share this series with your friends and your colleagues. Join us every Wednesday afternoon for the next edition of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Business Success Series, brought to you by Manulife, Immigration Partnership, and our September sponsor, Gowling WLG. Because it's Wednesday, it's Business Success Series. Thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate it.